Hey guys, having just finished having a look at the DC Multiverse Justice League figures, we're now finished the Collect and Connect Steppenwolf. So that's exactly what we're going to have a look at in this video. We're going to have a look at the DC Comics Multiverse Justice League Steppenwolf. Alright, so let's get the tape measure going. If you technically count to the very tips of his horns, the Collect and Connect Steppenwolf stands at a whopping 10 inches tall. Of course, we somewhat touched base on the included accessory for Steppenwolf when we had a look at Cyborg, but I think it feels, well, there's the need, of course, to spend a little bit more time to look at this outstanding looking axe. It almost looks like something that Giger would have designed. It's got some cool looking details going on here. Hard to actually make out everything. Perhaps if they had put a second dry wash or, like a second coat of paint over top of it to bring out some of those little recessed areas of the details. It kind of even looks like, if you look at the front of it, it looks like something you would have seen from Pacific Rim as well, like one of the creatures. Even like the handle has some nice sculpted details there as well. I mean, again, it's hard to kind of make out everything that's going on. It's a very busy looking axe. I'm glad that they went this route and not something like a very simplified looking axe. It definitely has a more alien look to it, I have to admit. It fits either hand perfectly fine. Of course, displaying him, I probably would be displaying him more so with the axe because it just looks so, gosh darn, it looks so cool. Let's put that to the side. Let's have a look at Steppenwolf. What a great looking figure. Now, admittingly so, the DC Multiverse Ares wave, which essentially had basically make use of a lot of the same similar color motif, I find is not as cool as this particular release. Like, Steppenwolf here looks awesome. He has a certain stoicness look to it. Like, he looks like he's a more aged alien. More of a veteran, I suppose, of the battlefields. And that's what I really like about the design choice for him. Despite the fact he's got alien aspects to him, he still has very human-looking traits, such as normal placed eyes, nose, mouth. Of course, I'm loving the chin beard that he's got going on there as well. It's kind of hard to see where his face ends and his helmet begins, as it's basically the same sort of color scheme. The eyes are almost a brown color, almost borderline, almost like a brown gray, even. And primarily, the whole figure really screams either like a dark black, like a dark gray, I should say, or a black. And really, all the extra stuff that you see here is additional washing over top. So you got that red, rusted red color. You've got the blues that pretty much play primarily the main color options here on the figure. But dig in that blue that's on the bottom aspects of the crown or the horns here. And then you've got that copper color at the top here. Let's take off this little piece of plastic that was at the top. Lots of detailing though in the face. There's the back of the helmet. The face also does a good job of standing out because like the rest of the body is more the darker colors, still making use of the coppers and the blues, but primarily the lower, basically from the neck down, he's got a more darker color palette. Again, lots of like cool details. Loving the texturing here. Like the arms almost look like a rhino skin sort of thing, and then you've got like the detailing of the armor and the area of the shoulder pads. It's kind of like where I was talking about before. It doesn't seem in some instances like there's a rhyme or reason for where they place the blue. It seems like they just kind of slopped it here, a little bit here, but it doesn't seem like there's a consistent trend as to where they would decide to put the blue. So some of the blues carry over to the areas of like the biceps. I don't know if that's intentional or like if every figure basically is going to have like a different placement of where the blue goes. Now, because his armor is a little bit more alien, maybe you could say, well, it should be a more irregular placement of paint. It shouldn't be so straightforward. I mean, at least the coppers and the blues seem to be somewhat consistent on the gauntlet areas of his hands. He's got, speaking of hands, by the way, the forearms, the hands, on the other hand, are very pale. And I have to almost see the movie, which obviously is not out yet. I'd have to see the movie to gauge whether that is an accurate color, because I almost feel like the hands should have been closer to the face color, a more lighter gray, as opposed to this almost off-white that the hands ended up being. It seems like that's the only thing that kind of detracts from the figure, that the hands stand out so much. Not only with the coloring, but also the paint. It looks like there's just a caked amount of this kind of whitish gray paint on the hands. In some extent, to the point where even like the paint has slightly chipped off or removed itself, especially like areas of the fingers here. Again, going back to the skull on the skirt, I dig that. I think that looks quite cool. The sculpting of the skirt as well. You see like these, it's almost like scaling that they've incorporated here. And then you've got your boots and the undersoles, which once again have a peg hole. So yeah, overall I'm really digging the look of this figure. Now let's go through his posability. His head rotates up and down. Shoulders move in and out and forward and back, but I'm having such a tough time, I have to admit, of not only getting the hands and the arms in place, which I know I'm just going to have to put a little more extra pressure into it, but I'm having a real tough time of hinging the joint outward, which is something I might actually take the arms off and see if I can actually heat them, so I can like work the joint a little bit, loosen that up, because I don't want to actually have it still in the torso and be forcing it. I almost feel like I want to kind of get it on its own and start moving it a little bit. So I might actually just do that. But the biceps would swivel, and then you've got the hinge in the elbow and then the rotation in the hand. The upper torso does have a crunch, which I do like, and it seems to crunch backwards rather than forwards, which again, I think he got a much more powerful stance. You know who he actually kind of reminds me of? He reminds me of Tim Curry's Darkness from Legend. Although obviously the horns go the opposite way. They go forward rather than up, but that's kind of like the vibe I'm getting here from the figure. He's got the waist swivel, and then again you've got the forward, back, and out motion on the legs. You've got the single hinge knee, and then you've got the hinge also in the feet here. Okay, so now that we've had a look at Steppenwolf, we looked at his articulation and all that, as we always do on this channel, let's have a look at the figures that made up this particular line. Now, I did actually have a tough time struggling with coming up with my top 3, because there were some figures that I liked, and there was obviously figures I didn't like, but then there were some figures that were kind of in that gray area. At the end of the day, though, I think I would almost say my favorite figure from this line would be Aquaman. And let's see if I can actually get him to properly stand. I'll talk about why there's that kind of gray area in a few moments. But I do like the sculpt. I think he's probably the closest to the actor in the movie. So I think likeness is probably the best on Aquaman here. I like the sculpting of his armor, and I'm digging the color palette of the green and the gold. So for that reason, I would say Aquaman is my favorite from this figure line. Now, this is kind of where it gets a little gray. I really like the Wonder Woman. Now, can I give it an honest pass as my second favorite? Because technically, she is basically a double-dipped figure. We've already gotten this figure before. So can I really give it, can I put it in that top 3 category? I'm going to actually, for that reason, put her as a tie for second. My second favorite figure is probably Flash. I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute. How could you like Flash when you don't like the costume? Again, I like the figure, even though I don't like the costume, and I don't like the design of this particular Flash. I still think the figure is pretty good. So Wonder Woman, even though I really like the sculpt, I wish that she could have been in an exclusive figure to this set and not simply just a re-release. So for that reason, I'm kind of just pairing them in the same category as number 2. And then my third favorite, I would say, is Cyborg here. Liking the coloring. Again, maybe a soft spot for the fact he kind of looks like a rock lord. Liking the silver. The head sculpt's pretty good. I like the attachment of the arm. Kind of wish he could have gotten more attachments. But I would say he is my third favorite figure. And then rounding out the bout, the last of them, I would say Batman is up there as well. The more I look at the figure, the more I'm thinking to myself, I like maybe how he looks in the movie, but I'm not as much the fan of him in figure form. So for that reason, he was kind of like the second last figure. And unfortunately, the last figure, I'm so sorry, Superman. I still keep trying to give him a heroic pose. He's just too lanky, and the head sculpt looks absolutely nothing like Henry Cavill, so he would be the distant last favorite figure from this line. So there you go, guys. There is all the figures in their particular rank here, and yeah, I would say again, I would say Aquaman is probably my favorite from this. Second favorite, tie between Wonder Woman and the Flash. Steppenwolf turned out to be a fantastic collect and connect figure. I really think he came out a lot better for starters than the Wonder Woman Ares, which I thought not only was too small, but just didn't deliver as much the cool sculpt that I end up getting here from Steppenwolf. He, again, very much reads to me like a Tim Curry sort of darkness design. I know even though the horns aren't really placed the same way, it's kind of like the feeling I'm getting when I'm looking at the figure here. I like the sculpt as well of the axe. He's proportionately a lot larger than the other figures. I think overall, this is probably one of my favorite movie tie-in build of figures. We really haven't gotten many over the last little while, but I really think Steppenwolf delivered everything I would want him to be, and so much more. Today, once again, we were looking at the Collect and Connect figure. This was Steppenwolf from the brand new DC Comics Multiverse Justice League line. Certainly hope you guys have enjoyed these videos. As always, appreciate when you guys hit it with a like down below, and let me know down below also what your favorite figures were from this line as well. I always like reading your comments, and certainly if you also haven't had a chance to subscribe to this channel, hit that little subscribe button down below. You won't miss a beat when it comes to future videos. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you next time.